So we'll see where it's going to start with domination and where exactly this series is going to take us. Guys, I know you've been itching to cast this series. Nobody can really decide between them. Let's get into it.
I mean, yeah, we have been itching. I remember actually, Tetsu, when you found out that we were the one scheduled for this game, there was a sort of like punch the air moment. It was like, oh, yes! This is the one that we get. This is the one that could go the distance to the full 5 maps, at least in day 1, I think, of the playoffs here. But we're getting ready to go into that first ban draft, and this is what we're talking about, right? We don't really think that you can ban out both of these teams. I think like it's much more about using the ban draft, forcing them onto a specific composition, and then being able to react around the composition that you put them onto.
I'm going to find out which direction they go in, and that is to head on in and start us off. Already, we're seeing more traditional to start, nothing wild. We're looking at Gambit in these early stages of the bans, starting off with a mirror from both sides. And nothing too unusual yet, but there's plenty of time.
Also safe, potentially coming through from RAD into, I'm guessing, a Loki or Mantis ban coming through from the side of Shikigami before they go into their own. Let's be honest, Elsa save. We don't have to be a fortune teller to be able to see that one coming. As, yep, there's the Elsa save. Now both teams will likely take the mirror for the Loki, or potentially RAD go for Mantis here, seeing that Shikigami took it out earlier.
There it goes. Mantis taken off the board. Completely identical bans so far from these teams and the locks. So now heading into the mirror, and we keep the theme, Invisible Woman. So far, this could be the draft from last series as well, Moxie, as we're sticking very heavily on the strategist bans that we've been seeing so far all of today, with only really Vanguard Deadpool sneaking in outside, and there he is as a protect, not in the ban phase this time.
Breaking the fourth wall. It's very Wade Wilson, isn't it? You say his name, and just like Beetlejuice, you've summoned him into existence. Oh, RAD going to be removing the Daredevil from the side of Frost Mountain. This means that Shikigami might feel like they have to go for a ban onto Daredevil themselves, or we could see the split come through if they go for this ban here. There's like debate. If they want to run the dive with the Venom, they know that the Luna White Fox team up is going to be problematic, so they actually remove the Luna and leave the Loki open. And I think this is maybe something that we're actually going to start to see more and more of, taking out the Mantis so that the Elsa doesn't get the 12% damage boost. Also then means that if Loki makes it through, he doesn't have the team up with the Mantis, but in terms of weighing Loki up with Invisible Woman gives much more resources to the Elsa to be able to take an off-angle fight, as opposed to the Loki, who's going to be wanting to group up with the team.
We are going to see Loki allowed through for both teams, so it is still available if either one wants to pick it up, as we're going to be heading on into Hell's Heaven for our first game in this best of 5 series. There's a whole lot of weird hovers in the spawn rooms. We'll see how many of these actually make it out, so we won't go too much into detail here. But overall, the one thing I want to really point out here is the one-sided Daredevil. You talked about how it might be important to potentially ban that out as well from the other side, but in this case, there is the option for RAD to get asymmetrical information here if they want to play Daredevil later on.
I don't think that, like, it's there if they want to go for it, but they don't have to use it. I think it's more important that they take it away from Shikigami, because Shikigami, like we said, they're a dive team. They've been playing mostly Daredevil with that dive, and now they don't have the information, so they actually have to take the time to scout out where RAD will be, as opposed to just being like, okay, we'll send this amount of players to this exact position at this amount of timing and be able to find that first elimination. As we're actually going to get a Hulk mirror coming on through. Isidore and Lugia both going to be playing that one. Name's the outlier, but the wolf grab from Frost Mountain delivers Ducky right into the clutching claws of Shikigami's crew, and they find the first elimination, make that the second. That will be point cap unlocked right to Shikigami's side. RAD have nothing to be able to contest this.
Vertigo will be able to get away thanks to that White Fox teleport to make sure that they don't get caught out here. But wow, lovely start by Shikigami. We talked about just how scary they can be with their dive composition. In this case, it was an isolation style, with Isidore able to lock down Lugia to keep them off their team, and then giving full freedom to Frost Mountain to isolate that Deadpool and capitalize for that first pickup of the game. As such, Shikigami can start to build up that charge. In the meantime, Crazy Kitty is just building up a lot of damage out for here. Wolverine is hovering in the sky with that Feral Leap, with the throw from that Cosmic Fastball, the Gamma Fastball from the Hulk team up here. They're going to try and push out with the thing. Lugia looking to try and put some pressure onto those mobile characters, but gets locked down again.
Yeah, great exile so that Lugia can't follow up now onto Kaya, but not able to stabilize the Vanguard Deadpool. They'll lose one of their players. RAD also having both Emma and Fing in play means that Frost Mountain loses these grab opportunities on the Vanguards, as Kaya's actually coming back on this range. Lindstrom uses God of Mischief to copy onto Nami, having Eternal Bond, which will delay RAD from getting this flip long enough for Kaya to come through on this range portal. We're going even further into delay territory because Isidore commits the World Breaker, and this is buying time for Nami to be able to hit an ultimate and force Mash to have to mirror.
Mash coming on in with that Eternal Bond here for a little bit of extra healing. Glass rocks from Crazy Kitty. The Apex Predator is able to isolate onto the Wolverine. Tries to Feral Leap away, but will get picked off by Ducky. Counter from Leo to kite them backwards. Picks off Mash. Removes at least some of the healing from Vertigo. Now with their own Eternal Bond, keeping the team topped up to try and delay this fight longer. But all this is doing is trying to allow RAD for an eventual flip, because we're at 92%. Shikigami's delay is paying off dividends here. Beautiful end song, though, might be enough finally for that flip, but it's at 99%, Moxie, and that's exactly what you want to see on Dom, if you can get the flip to happen when you're already on overtime.
Yeah, it's the opposite of what you want to see if you're a RAD supporter, though. Because, now, if you're Shikigami, you have so much point percentage to play with, you can just build up ults. We're actually even going to see that they're going to be swapping. They're going to go for the group Moon Knight and just play for the combo. To be able to take advantage of Mash being the Loki, so the Ankh bounces, means that your Moon Knight will hit Hand of Khonshu so much sooner. It also means that RAD don't get the opportunity of just playing for a first pick before Shikigami can make a play, and Mash is getting very little heal opportunities since Shiki aren't poking at the moment outside of that Moon Knight. Mash has no one to heal to be able to match Lindstrom's ult. The moment Shikigami hit Loki, they're just gonna go in with God of Mischief copy.
Lugia is stuck on the thing as well, a massive hitbox for that Moon Knight to just combo off of. It was Pips to deal with the Wolverine, but Wolverine is now gone. Ankh comes out, isolates two with the help of the Fluffy Unicorn Shield from Kaya, splitting the team right off the bat, taking out Lugia, forcing out the Apex Predator to try and take them down, but a beautiful wall to allow the retreat, and once again, overtime starts to tick down. Here comes the dive as Emma touches just to try and buy time, but that is Shikigami with the flip, able to take back control and take the first point.
See, this was the thing about Shikigami. When you go back, when you watch their games and you actually see from overhead POV, they're so disciplined. They're so content with not looking for more if they don't have to do more. And that last fight, that is just their MO to an absolute T. The fact that they understand, oh, wait a minute, we're so close to our God of Mischief. If we start doing any form of poke pressure, Mash is going to be able to just absorb that damage, channel it up, have potentially Loki ultimate to be able to match Lindstrom's. So what we can literally just do is have Agru, our Strange Play anchor on point. Frost Mountain can put pressure on the backline with the Moon Knight when the fight's starting as opposed to before, and we can just make a play for first turn with unmatched Loki ult, which RAD, as I said, it's unmatched. They can't afford to meet it. They have to give up the space and make a play for a clutch Elsa ult, which Shikigami can just absorb. Really good heads-up play, very good macro coming on through from the side of Shikigami, which honestly just finished off the fight before RAD got the opportunity to win it.
Nice, simple, not a gank attempt to a portal, but just a high ground control just to try and get the more advantageous position coming in from Shikigami, because they have Straggling Prison. And that Hand of Khonshu already off the back. It's a massacre, Moxie! RAD off deleted off the board. The charge up from last round not needed thanks to the isolation of Kaya and Isidore, preventing any need for the wombo, so they drop it right off the bat. And that's Shikigami taking full control again to start building that percentage.
Yeah, it's one of those ults that you can go aggressively with at the start of these rounds too, because even though Mash had regeneration domain, it's not enough. The amount of damage coming on through from those individual talons is just going to shred through the runestones before RAD can live it. They do have Mash's ult here to make a move, but if they use first, and you can already see Leola's posted up with the Apex Predator wanting to grab people out of the path of Eternal Bond to set up for the eliminations on Shikigami, who still have not given flip, and they'll hold on to it longer yet, since Name has later Eternal Bond, and Rad's whole ultimate economy might be torched just finding the flip the same way we saw previously.
We lose the Moon Knight, but here comes second Eternal Bond. Lindstrom, once again, they're just trying to buy as much time as they can. No portal re-engage this time. Vertigo's going to mirror it, so it's all about Shikigami just delaying as long as they can. Frostmatch can try and roll back in as quick as they can, but this will be a flip for RAD. They will take control, and this time, quite a bit quicker. 51% no portal re-engage available for Shiki, so it's time to potentially adjust a bit. They're going to move off of the Doctor Strange, wait until that portal's back later, and they're going to but they will keep with that Moon Knight Groot combo, especially with the fact that Thing is still in play. As long as they don't get caught out by the Wolverine Thing Cosmic Fastball combo, they still have a fantastic wombo and some great targets to just really stack that Moon Knight damage off of.
Yeah, taking the high ground approach, scouting, clearing all of the corners to make sure that Crazy Kitty is not around one of them, looking to grab out the Vampul or potentially that Groot as well, as they're actually going to invade closer into now Rad's own position. We can see Shikigami wanting to just play the high ground, have Lindstrom up posted up there safely, out of the way of the Thing's clobbering time so that you can react to it with the regeneration domain. Smashness, though, currently uncontested, takes out Leola, strangling Prisons and Fetch from Eastall, but there's no follow-up from the hand of Khonshu. Frost Mountain is having to duelite Smashness instead, and Rad will be able to hold on to the fight as Elsa is let loose.
RAD are taking so much of an advantage over how this map in particular is set up. They're making great use of the high ground and those back room areas in order to try and just sustain, keep control, and not get caught, most importantly. That way they can just make sure they're split enough to not get capitalized. The Frost Mountain may have to drop some non-advantageous ultimates. There's a great Wolverine catch after being thrown around from one side. Last stand, enough to take out Kaya.
Yeah, that was solo ult. Onto the Vanguard Deadpool through the Banhammer. Mash, though, has allowed the inroad to come through with the God of Mischief copy onto Eternal Bond. Shikigami do not yet have match. You can see Ducky just waiting, understanding Shikigami's hand is about to be forced. We're about to hit OT. They have to walk through. If you can get the stun up onto the Loki to find the elimination before he can use the CC immunity outside of the Emerald, you might be able to shut down Shikigami's stall. Lindstrom comes through with the Eternal Bond. Ducky still holding onto the Psionic Seduction, just holding it, waiting for the CC immunity to be done. Huge Apex Predator from Leila. Smashness tries to equalize, grabs so many players, 2 in one fell swoop, including the CD. Name loses the opportunity for second ult, and Shikigami, they got the Strange Portal through, but there's no Cloak and Dagger ultimate to stabilize the team long enough to actually stall for it.
They didn't have the sustain, they didn't have the strategist. The one good side is Rad did use Portal just in case that went south. This is not something Shikigami knows, but it is a resource that's not available for Rad coming into this next point. But that means both teams are going to be portal-less. Frost Mountain did try to reinforce, but like you said, Name went down so quickly, meaning it was just Lindstrom, just trying to keep everyone topped up in what was essentially a 3 versus 5. Overall, Rad with a fantastic comeback, making some really good positions. You talked about how disciplined Shikigami were about when they were attacking round 1. This was Rad with massive positioning advantages, giving Shikigami no room to capitalize.
Well, Shikigami do at least have Cloak ult for this first fight. They will have Eternal Bond. We can see as well they're just setting up Lindstrom, already having used that Loki ult. No punishment, swapping onto the rocket. All of these armor packs as well as the jump cookie will be able to remain even when they swap off. So this is literally just enabling Frost Mountain. If he grabs someone early in this fight, he'll be able to take them a little bit deeper to Shikigami's side. As Ducky holds the Psionic Seduction, he did not use it in that overtime fight, but that does mean that Name has to be very cautious about how he invests this Eternal Bond. The immunity CC frames only last for the actual dashes themselves.
caught out, locked down, or even caught out before you could ultimate. Here comes the immediate pickup. Crazy Kitty getting to lose the attempted grab battle versus Frost Mountain, but is able to escape thanks to Ducky, who will drop that silent seduction early, trying to take advantage. Shikigami, they will take the point with that pickup here, and they once again absolutely massacre RAD. This is what we've seen so far every single time, but last match, RAD were able to take this back a little bit quicker.
Oh,
and this is Shikigami not wanting to give them that opportunity to do so again, so they stagger Lugia to make sure that they get all the extra time they could want.
Yeah, it was a brutal play from Shikigami's side. Like, Name gets to use Eternal Bond, and then RAD have to position in anticipation of the Terror Cape that comes through afterwards. He still catches the disengage when they're all stacked up. With Strangling Prison, RAD have very little to be able to actually catch it with the shield. Ducky's still using Silent Seduction, so can't use the Aegis. And then the follow-up is just there with Leolas. And melts through those players from RAD when they don't have strategist ults. Speaking about strategist ults, though, we are approaching matches, so they'll have second strategist ult cast here. Currently got the high ground too, but Isidore taking a little bit of damage, is just absorbing it, funneling it over, so Lindstrom has match, actually gets the Groot Wall to interfere with Mash's trajectory of the Eternal Bond as Map moves and Eternal Bond moves with it. Oh no!
That takes it off the objective, meaning Shikigami step back on. Frost Mountain stunned down, but here comes Apex Predator into the backline. And RAD, they tried to follow the healing, but they just find pain as they're chased off the point once again. RAD sent packing here. And once again, we're looking at more similar to round 1 than round 2. We're up to 77%, Moxie.
Yeah, that's a rough one. If they use Vertigo's ult as well to engage, Name just gets Eternal Bond unmatched. Crazy Kitty goes down early too, which means that RAD have to make a play because it's about to be OT. Eternal Bond, but like you said, the Groot Wall comes on through from Isidore. The dashes do get onto point. Terror Cape as well, forcing out the regeneration domain early on the side of Lindstrom. So RAD have advantage in terms of that cooldown, but they lose Smashness before the Elsa can ult. And Isidore has been an absolute beast on the Groot.
Strangling Prison holds them off the objective. No one can touch, no portal, and Shikigami take control and claim map number 1.
Woof, big plays coming on through from Shikigami. Like I said, like they're a very predominant dive team. But the discipline that they have when they played that dive, when you apply it to other compositions, the potential level is there, and we're really starting to see that potential come through. Isidore was mostly known for Captain America, flexed onto the Vanguard Deadpool when called for, but now we're getting to see a little bit more out of him in terms of playing things like that Groot, and he was putting the work in. Those Strangling Prisons, even without the follow-up from things like the Moon Knight, when they moved away from it, were so good at grabbing multiple players on the side of RAD. Despite the fact that RAD had the cloak, they potentially could have used the Dark Teleportation to fade out of the CC connection, but he's so good at catching them just when it's used up.
Also, Isidore with just some of the best walls since China, blocking off the fade, but the Eternal Bonds from the Cloak and Daggers, blocking off an attempted retreat from Lugia as he just tried to escape after being staggered for so long by just blocking him in the Ancestry charge. The isolations onto multiple people, blocked one Glatrox, just art. Beautiful performance there by Isidore. We love to see.
I mean, the fact as well that he got the elimination on Smash in that last fight on Frozen Airfield when Smashness had Elsa ult. Like, that's the turn. That's what RAD are banking on being able to win in that fight. And then they lose Elsa before they even get the opportunity to use the ult because Isidore just catches you with the primary.
It for this first map. Shikigami take the lead, but it's a best of 5. Plenty of opportunity for RAD to come back in, but we'll be back with map number 2 very shortly.
Watch out, they're headed our way! Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
The hunt is on! 1,000 gods!
More of an interesting development here as Shikigami winning it out on Hell's Heaven to bring us to the second map in this best of 5. And we go to Central Park, which is not really too much of a surprise, Moxie, because it is somewhere that we have seen RAD take us place before when they've lost. The problem, however, is that it's also a map that Shikigami like, and they have some pretty tasty ideas on how to play it too.
Yeah, I mean, this says to me we're going to be seeing triple strategist lines coming through, but I think there's a larger risk here. And that's that this is a very strong group map. So I think, like, while we're going to Central Park to see Ducky's group potentially come into play, we might actually get the head-to-head of the group versus after Easter's performance there on Hell's Heaven, which, as we pointed out, as you saw actually from the replays, that group, the walls, the ults, the damage, it was very much there.
Did it seemed a little bit like Ducky was forced off of it, because we know how good his group can be, wanting to be on the EMEA because it's less barriers, but like for Central Park in particular, Tetra, Shikigami turned a lot of heads when they played up against Na'Vi on this map for the composition that they were running before. So real quick, what character have we not seen for a while that was used on this map that actually got a win against Na'Vi from Shikigami?
Why, I believe you're referring to the Human Torch, if I had to guess. The Torch combo with Mantis and Ultron to basically dominate the skies with damage boost, AoE, as much control as you need, with some burst when needed. This pre-Torch, we're going to call it adjustment, because it's the jury's still out as to how effective that change will be with the new dash movement. But the fact is, it makes approach exceptionally hard because everything's on fire now.
Yeah, it's and this is before any of the other changes come in too. But I guess the problem, however, Moxie, is like Shikigami might have shown their hand quite early with trying to get that win against Na'Vi. I think it was Frostmountain that said in the interview that, like, as soon as the draft came through, they knew that they had won that map against Natas Vincere of all teams. Against RAD, I don't think it's going to be that clear cut. And RAD know about this composition now, so they have probably got a couple of ideas on how they want to try and deal with it.
Well, RAD have also played the Ultron Mantis. They haven't played the Torch variant, that was Peps, following in the footsteps of Shikigami in their next matchup against Na'Vi. But RAD have still played the Ultron composition, and also, if, like, Ultron Torch comes back into discussion, Star-Lord is like the go-to counter. So if we see Star-Lord, if we see Peter Quill pop up in the ban draft, that's instant red flag of, okay, they're trying to make the Torch Ultron composition work here again.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how this one's going to go realistically, because like I said, we have seen a little bit more expensive RAD playing on this map in particular. I think they picked it against Virtus Pro, and whilst they didn't win out on that map, there were some moments that did stress Virtus Pro out, just like the overtime push. I remember at the end of that map on their attacking side was a couple of moments where RAD could have been a little bit tighter. But I think Tetra for these two teams, like meta-wise, they're very well experienced, they're well versed, they have an understanding and very flexible. It just kind of reminds me of what Kai was saying about, like, it's about basically being as succinct as possible, polishing the team play as opposed to their understanding of it, making sure that these teams are as coordinated as they can be, right? That seems to be the win condition for both sides.
And that's why when we were talking about these predictions earlier, I had to lean it, like, my 1 to 2%, make it like 52 to 48% of the vote towards Shikigami. They've simply been playing together that little bit longer. They've had that more time to polish, whereas the members of Team RAD, a lot of them have played together individually, but as at least a mostly unit, this is a newer team created for MRC to qualify. And while they've been performing admirably and beautifully, it's something that we're still seeing them do. We're still seeing them improve as time goes on.
RAD are attacking first as well, and the notable fact that I just spotted too, in both times that we've seen RAD play this map, they managed to finish it out and get to that final checkpoint. Unfortunately against First Pro, they had to go again, which ended up costing them because VP pushed in OT. But this is expected them to be leading the line. Shikigami hoping to have a stalwart defense and a good attack inside themselves. We'll see how they do and whether we see that torch fly in the sky again.
Okay, we've already sort of laid the sort of foundations for what we can expect in the ban draft. The Gambit instant ban will continue, and I feel like that's a no-brainer, especially if you're wanting like a triple strat line. If you are at some point wanting the Ultron, you don't want Gambit plus Star-Lord because Galactic Legend on its own normally beats Rage of Ultron. Galactic Legend plus Raging Rock Flush, well, that's a whole new powerhouse.
Very much is. So immediately we do see the Gambit's taken away, as you have mentioned so far. So same. Mantis, Gambit, see you later. Elsa, welcome to the map. And if we're going to keep going by the theme, Invisible Woman will be taken out, mirrored on both sides. So far, we really do seem like we have found the first half and a bit of drafts for most of these teams. It's these last two, this one protect, this one ban for each team where we've seen any adjustments so far.
Yeah, I mean, this could be like the Vanguard Deadpool. Well, there we go again. He's really good at breaking the 4-4, isn't he? A timely man is Mr. Wade Wilson. So what did RAD go for here? Did they go for the Jeff to try to take out the team up? No, they're going to continue going for this Luna. Like, again, I feel like at some point, especially in Central Park, you know that there'll be elements of dive. It's the way that the attacker are able to circumvent having to be funneled into one main route on the attack. You can split off, and having that Luna for the CC, having the Fate of both worlds as well for the potential damage boost, or even the CC immunity that it grants the Luna so she can actually go with the Elsa ult Glatrox path, as opposed to some of these other strategists who are a little bit more static and where they can use their ultimates, is still something that you want to remove from play. As is, despite the Mantis being banned, the risk of Ultron showing up at any point. So Shikigami secure one-sided Ultron, but not one-sided Star-Lord.
Very interesting. So this can give them the capability now to not have to worry about dealing with multiple flyers when they head onto the point, but like you already mentioned, damage boost has been removed, at least from that Mantis, meaning your damage boost sources are a little bit lesser now. While Ultron does offer a very slight amount himself, the other option is basically Storm, and we've not been seeing a lot of that other than some more fun hovers as we head on in. Shikigami, we're not seeing them start off with this double flyer setup. They banned out the Ultron, but they're not picking it. Is this potentially something to try and bait their opponents into looking into that or trying to counter what could have been a more fire composition? In fact, Shikigami are looking into more static defense. They are pulling out the group as we were hoping, and we are seeing them going into Wolverine once again. Isolate, wall off, pick off.
Not just that, but like Wolf can play many different ways. He can play for first turn Wolf, where you're trying to be more proactive and picking up vanguards from Rad's own front line, but you can also play Peel Wolverine against things like the Venom, the Captain America. There's a lot actually that Frost Mountain can do, and it will all basically be determined by Rad's frontline themselves. Since Rad aren't going for the Venom, aren't going for the Captain America, aren't going for the Angela, it's going to be more of a proactive play coming on through from Frost Mountain, ideally trying to grab Ducky in this opening gambit.
Dire is building so much ult charge off of Ducky, though, as they just land shot after shot onto this Groot. Ducky is getting healed up beautifully, though. Vertigo and Mash keeping them topped up onto the board as Crazy Kitty is looking for any kind of opening. Lugia on the thing once again, making the most of it before these tenacity buffs that are coming in the next season. As the pressure onto the board, Crazy Kitty gets dropped low as they try and set up something into the backline, but unable to find a finishing blow. The regeneration domain will expire as Isidore looks to trap the retreating members. Dive on in, Mash falls down as Frost Mountain found a beautiful angle there to allow that first pickup for Shikigami.
Yeah, Rad just don't have the means of securing space outside of main. This is the problem of Central Park attack, right? This is why you always have a split coming through from your team, but they're just not getting the opportunity to do so. So what it's going to do is it forces them to have to just take these fights and build up ults. It's taking a lot of time, and it's risky too, because they could lose someone before they can even touch the point, which is why Mash goes through with the God of Mischief, goes for an early copy onto the Cloak and Dagger. Isidore already getting ready with the walls to just block off the disengagement opportunity so that they can just take Mash down. As Smashness, though, fell for the bait. Shiki all turn and look at the Loki, but the true God of Mischief is the Elsa behind them all along.
Smashness with the wraparound of the playoffs so far, found literally everyone. And Shikigami's solid defense just turned into nothing. And look at this aggressive portal. Don't give them a chance to set up. Don't worry about the high ground. We're fighting on the objective. But Lindstrom falls early. Mash has already set up on the high ground and has the Loki firing squad at the ready.
Yeah, it has regeneration domain as well. Like, this is one of the trade-offs with Portal. You have 0 map control when you actually decide to use it. So RAD perfectly just split their players, have the high ground, take multiple angles against Shikigami. So if they lose one person, they can still keep the rest of the team active. Crucially as well, they've still got point control. If Shikigami had been able to complete the full map flip and get the objective, and then actually get those crucial eliminations onto the attack, then split their team, with RAD having to play on the defense side and losing their players to half the team still being stuck on attack, you could be looking at a much more problematic time bank. Now, though, they've got both the objective moving as well as all of the map space that Shikigami now have to walk back into, which again will come off of something like the Loki God of Mischief being used early, so RAD will get second cast.
Mad Sunny's drop down range, straggling prison comes on out from Ducky, enough to finish off Leolas nice and quickly. This is going to give Rad the opportunity to try and make an opening here. Kaya's taken down as well. Lindstrom going for the Eternal Bond with the God of Mischief just to buy time. Give time for a reinforced straggling prison from Isidore. They're down numbers. The regeneration domain is just too much though. Shikigami, they just burnt everything, and Rad is still at full HP. They can't find a target. Crazy Kitty will shut down the defense with another fantastic last stand. And this is Rad perfectly countering the engage, perfectly dealing with the stragglers, and they are able to guarantee that second point early and already set up Crazy Kitty with a Cosmic Fastball.
Frost Mountains onto Namor, which means that we're playing for Cloak, we're playing to Scout, we're trying to just deal with the Wolverine. It's been very problematic for our front line to have to deal with. Going as well for Leolas with the solo strangling prison before Eastor could ult, now means that Leolas was not there with the follow-up Apex Predator. They've also been able to find an isolated Isidore by forcing the issue. And get both the Gru and the Namor, which means that Shiki know this fight is done. It's time to just go on to the objective and stall it out for as long as possible so you can play for close respawns and one more fight. Leolas has been holding this Elsa ult for so long too. Smashness, honestly, Tetra, could just go for the second turn Elsa ult so that when Leolas uses his, he doesn't get the opportunity to follow up on the Glartrox.
Healing up, Mash goes for the Eternal Bond copy right off the bat to make sure that they can just get the first initial engage. Look for Leo. Can they get that ult off quick enough? Smashness is going to pull the trigger first. Enough to take down Isidore, straggling prison. Leo drops the Apex Predator, but their team is nowhere to be seen. They've been deleted. And Rad tagged through once again. Smashness survives on a slither of HP. And Ratatoska makes their way into the throne room. That is a triple cap for Rad.
Yeah, a little bit of a hiccup in the first few engagements on the Walker, but that was what we were expecting, right? When you're not playing dive characters, it's going to take fights for you to be able to build up an ult battery, walk into the defensive side, use the Eternal Bond aggressively to set your path so you can have the Terror Cape. Everyone from Shikigami tries to go like, okay, this cloak so massively overextended. Eastor's going to be able to wall off. They're not going to be able to escape. We'll just jump on them. We burn through Eternal Bond. Rad loses their engagement opportunity. Smashness passes the stealth check with a nat 20 and then hits the agility check with a follow-up natural 20 for the Elsa Apex Predator. And from there, like, Shikigami just never really got the full regroup after the portal fight. They lost so much time on second. They didn't gain first corner control too, which is usually where the defense is able to stall out the attacker's time economy, and it just melted into 3 as well, where they lost players. They weren't able to get a full 6 versus 6 regroup to force RAD back and respect the space of the defense, and they lost the opportunity to go first.
The prophecy of RAD versus VP, where they were able to take the triple cap in their push last time as well, has come to pass. Can they break that prophecy though and actually not get triple push themselves? As Shikigami, they are starting on Storm with Mantis taken away. We're talking about what few options there are left for damage boost, and Ultron and Storm are basically all that's there. They're going to give it a go, but you've got to be careful because there's an extremely angry Canadian who has basically mini-flight themselves.
Wolverine wants uppies, and Frost Mountain does not want to be anywhere near, as Easter's actually able to commit the wall isolation onto Ducky so that he falls. And Shikigami with that Storm damage boost too, they very quickly overwhelm Rad's neutral game. Rad understanding, okay, we're going to lose this one, they're going to back off the point, they can still give up one more tick, and they can come through with the strange TP. One person should step onto point to stall like time, but uh-oh, that's miscommunication. Portal does not come through. No one else from Rad actually steps up to the plate to contest it, and Shikigami get both first cap as well as Portal cooldown out from Rad's end.
Crazy Kitty tried to touch the point to buy time for that portal. Portal comes out. It was too late, so Crazy Kitty just leaps through the portal and teleports to the new spawn. Absolutely love that, but rough times for Rad. Another resource taken away as Shikigami make incredible time. 5 minutes and 20 seconds on the clock for them to push on into the second point. A lot of damage is coming in from that low-key high ground positioning and a bit of stun coming on out as we do see the Phoenix from Smashness to try and deal with all these group walls and Loki clones.
Oh, Ducky. Oh, they're able to break the group wall just in time. Bulwark from the mag into the regeneration domain. Bails Ducky out, but Rad are losing a lot of space. They've already lost their early corner hold. Lindstrom's going to have ult in a moment too, as well, as you have to keep an eye on both the Wolverines. Grab potential, but now we get the Loki coming on through, which means that you'll instantly lose the Banhammer taunt coming on through from Lugia. And Shikigami think that it's go time. They've got the Terror Cape, they've got the Elsa ultimate. Smashness detonates it at least with the End-Song Inferno, but Shikigami still have sustainability with the Eternal Bond coming through from Name's end now.
Name was able to take out Ducky mid-air as well, preventing the Meteor M from landing the fall with the Terror Cape for the little bit of damage it did for the final hit. As such, Shikigami break on through, finishing the defenders off, and Shikigami continue their pace. 5 minutes 38 for their second point here, and we thought Rad were fast. This is insane from Shikigami, and Rad, maybe it's time to adjust. That Phoenix came on out. It seemed like a solid choice, but it hasn't found the value yet.
I mean, it's hit scan. Shikigami at least are going to be swapping off of that Storm. So they lose the one-sided damage boost. They're going to go for the Wolverine, as it now looks like Rad might be able to stabilize their hold. They just find one elimination, one fight win on third. They haven't lost someone early to this engagement yet, so they still have the space. They're poking away, they're trying to destroy the terrain so that Shikigami get less opportunity to hide, but with all of the incoming poke and no eliminations off of the back of it, what Rada actually doing right now is battering Lindstrom's ult to be able to match Vertigo's.
Crazy Kitty is not fully stacked yet on that. Well, that will help be able to take down Isidore on that instinct. Able to get the first pickups. They try to push on back and force Shikigami off the point. If they can get some staggered pickups, that would be huge for them. And Kaya is finding themselves very isolated, but they take the 2v1. They're able to counter and get pickups of their own. And Rad are suddenly in full retreat. Eternal Bond has to be used to buy them the extra time and to keep that point held. But Kaya with the duel of the century there.
Yeah, I mean, forcing as well that Eternal Bond from Rad now means that Shikigami go into this next fight double strategist advantage. Mash has to stretch one God of Mischief copy against being able to mirror both Name's and Lindstrom's and live the Apex Predator, the Groot cast. Because the Shikigami, they're down the Elsa, but they still want to burn Rad's bank. They think that this is winnable. Eternal Bond comes on through from Lindstrom. Crazy Kitty tries to circumvent the path of it with the Apex Predator coming through from his end. So they grab out Isidore, and that should mean that Shikigami call off this push. They're down their Groot. You can see them in full retreat at the moment. They do not want to lose someone late.
I outnumber you.
They burned 2 big resources there, and they got punished for it, essentially forcing out almost nothing from RAD. Name gets taken down, so no Eternal Bond, meaning Shikigami's push is delayed even longer. And RAD, they finished this point with 3 minutes 4 on the clock, and they've managed to hold Shikigami to equal that out, essentially. We're at 3 minutes 19 right now for Shikigami, and they still have plenty of distance to push this in the rest of the way. Beautiful stabilizing here by RAD, and they still have the majority of their tools, including the one-shot combo of Ensong Inferno Meteor M.
Not just that, but Meteor M is a threat to E-Store as well. Strangling Prison is a projectile. We've seen multiple mag ults be used to eat the Groots. And Shikigami do not want to see E-Store's ult gone the wayside. Name, though, has to be, like you said, so careful, so cautious about that one-shot potential. Ensong Inferno held for as long as possible, forces out the Dark Teleportation. Frost Mountain gets the last time connection onto Mash, but doesn't complete the elimination, so Mash does get the God of Mischief off. Nama uses ult. That means that Ducky tries to get the one-shot combo off with the follow-up. Shikigami caught in the jaws of the Glatrox, weren't able to stop the follow-up Meteor M, and that will be that fight done. But what ult economy RAD have left is so little in comparison to the attack.
Vertigo must stay up. They're the closest to having a defensive ability here at 71%. If they can stay up, they can build it and potentially hold this. But right now, Lindstrom has access to the God of Mischief. Isidore making their way in, now on the Magneto of their own. They lose a little bit of ult charge here. Lindstrom's taken down early though, so no defensive ultimate here with a Fade of both work, with a Eternal Bond here. So they have to regroup and make their way back to the rest of the team. And Shikigami, they keep losing people in these neutrals.
Oh no. Tacha, RAD have map flipped. So when Lindstrom comes back to the team, they might still be able to pick up the Loki a second time to delay this Eternal Bond. We've got Banhammer coming on through from Kaya, but we've got both Eternal Bonds as well as Regeneration Domain open. Mash will be able to sustain through that Banhammer, keep Smashner stabilized as well to have Ensong Inferno be held in the pocket of the Phoenix to react to Shikigami wanting to make a play forward. Lindstrom's going to use the Eternal Bond. Smashner gets low enough, 37 HP, has to go for the Ensong for the health reset as Frost Mountain gets to use the environment against RAD. Feral Lunge grabs one off the map, and Shikigami are making up for lost ground.
Quick teleport attempt from Smashness, but they get picked off here. The push comes on in. Wolverines are desperately trying to send people off the side. Frost Mountain's doing so much work to hold this together for Shikigami. Name's at 90% for their Eternal Bond to try and buy as much time as possible. Kaya's committing onto it, but no one touches. That's going to be Shikigami evening it up at 3-3. There are a couple bodies for RAD on the board, but there was just too much disruption from the approach by Shikigami, preventing RAD from reaching.
Yeah, but the difference between the two teams is when we get to third. Right? Because RAD, when they're attacking on third, they continue snowballing that momentum with the pickoffs onto Shikigami. They get both the Namor as well as that Groot, which means that Shikigami never get to stabilize their team, never get to sink their ultimates into one fight, guarantee win it, and then take all of the map control to eke out the attack. Ultimate economy, time bank, picks on walk up before the fight begins to delay the fight actually kicking off. That's what we got to see RAD just avoid entirely by coming on through with some of those picks onto Shikigami. Shikigami, though, they fall prey to it. They're able to just like go for the full regroup. They lose a lot of time. They're not able to just like push RAD into being able to bully them throughout the whole duration of third, which means, Tatcha, they have 1 minute in comparison to 3:15. The difference for them, though, was that it took RAD a little bit of time to unlock first. Shikigami did it in the first go, and you can tell that RAD, they're already thinking about a potential Storm attack comp because Smashness is rolling out on Namor.
A way to deal with potential flanks on the backline. Shikigami have been known to play multiple flyers and just wrap around with both flyers and dive, like, for example, that Daredevil. And like you say, the potential Storm for damage boost is another way to try and pick them off with the Monstros auto-targeting. It's a defensive, safe pickup here. They don't have stuff like a group to combo with for a Horn of Proteus, but it's not about that. You might not even make it to ult with this little time on the board. It's all about buying time, slowing the assault, and preventing a loss from a flank.
Yeah, Ducky not being on Groot as well, despite being on defense on Central Park. This is so that you have more to react to the pressure coming on through from Kaya getting Banhammer up early. You can just bubble with Bulwark your team, or you can bubble yourself with your own Bulwark. But unfortunately, he still gets grabbed by Frost Mountain, taken down, and Rad now sans that Magneto might have to swap to the Strange to try to portal back into this fight to keep their player numbers up.
Here it comes. Ducky's going to try and reach it. This is where it kind of went wrong last time, so they're trying to make people get to the point in time. But once again, Portal comes out, not in time. With a second on the board, Shikigami claimed point 1, and now it's that overtime counter. Someone's got to be touching Ratatoska at all times.
Oh, this is a lot of free push coming on through from the side of Shikigami. I mean, Crazy Kitty might be able to find an elimination out of nowhere. That is the power of Elsa, but Shikigami already has their players so pushed up in terms of the map space. You can see Frost Mountain, the silhouette there, just on the opposing high ground, waiting to set up a grab onto the Vanguard. Ducky's able to pull off his self-bulwark, though. Does not get picked through, and this time Rad can keep that mag on the front line to stabilize it and hold the space for Crazy Kitty to get to work.
Ducky's on the flank, trying not to get zoned off by those group walls. Takes a lot of damage. He's able to wrap around without getting picked off, though. Lindstrom creeping forward with these Loki clones so that they can just slowly wrap around the corner without the being picked off early. Right now, positioning's good. Glatrox comes on out, grabs one, tries to take them out of position here, but it's mostly Loki clones that are being focused down off the point here. Eternal Bot, for Mash, for the defense, DTRM right around the corner, as is for the Proteus, for Rad. They have a huge combo here. If they can potentially land this on top of Lindstrom, they could get a huge blow-up right on top of the line. Frost Mountain and Kaya are removed from the board, but that means Name is surviving. Eternal Bot number 2 comes out to buy even more healing opportunities. Vertigo healing themselves out. Bad hammer onto the backline to try and take out Lindstrom. Kaya's going to portal back in as overtime is holding. Isidore is using walls. He's made himself a house and he's trying to make it a home to buy as much time on the point as possible. Takes out Vertigo. They've held it. Portal comes back. Shikigami is still going, Moxie.
Frost Mountain's about to get last stand. This might be Shikigami's last stand, as Rad are just falling to pieces at the moment. They're losing players just at inopportune times. They're not able to get this regroup, and they have to concede second. Shikigami completes the push, goes to third. It's OT, so no extension of time, but Leola's just extended the distance they'll be able to pick up with a crucial late elimination going down onto Crazy Kitty. No Elsa in play, no Vanguard's getting poked down early. Eastor is going to have such a safer time of setting things up as Ducky is onto the Emma. He's had enough. He wants to just brute force Rad forward without having to deal with the Wolverine shenanigans.
Shikigami, they've used their portal. They cannot bring it in for reinforcements. Making their way down. Isidore going over to Captain America. Just someone fast to reach the point with some sustain. But a smash net with the wraparound grabs one. Bad hammer onto the backline from Kaya. Last stand. Frost Mountain to take him down. Smash net falls. Kaya takes out Lugia. And Rad, even with numbers advantage, they're getting picked off on the flanks. But it's the whole staircase still to push. And Rad are beginning to reinforce. Glassrox comes on out. Apex Predator. But Crazy Kitty falls once again. Leo is pushing into the spawn room to try and just zone them out, to try and hold them. But Luki is coming back in on that Deadpool to buy every second they can. Eternal Bond from Mash. They're throwing everything they can at this, Moxie.
Yeah, but Leolas with the Elsa ult just carries the rest of Mash's team outside of the Eternal Bond healing. Still, Rad closer respawns, Ensong, Inferno, Banhammer. They're investing literally everything. Lindstrom with the Eternal Bond keeps Shikigami up for now, but Rad have been waiting. They've still got the ults. Name's about to come through with another cast of that Eternal Bond, but Ducky with the Emma ult might be able to get the pressure, the silence, the charm onto the CD before you can escape it. No Eternal Bond, reliance on Freedom Charge instead, but they've spotted 2 players outside of it on the off angle, and Leolas is taken down via Ensong. Rad still just trying to stop Shikigami from getting the full push as Easter runs onto the back line, but that means that the cap is not there to sustain position on point, and Rad finally stole out the payload, but oh my goodness, Tatcha. 1 minute. Shikigami had 1 minute. And they got to third!
They got to a third, they got to the entrance to the throne room. Shikigami with just showing, we talked about how aggressive this team can be with dive style compositions, but the flexibility of others there, just with a Groot Wolverine once again showing the combos between Lindstrom and Frost Mountain here. Isolation, now there's a wall. No one can heal you, you're gone. There's not much you can do about it.
It's truly criminal that Easter lived as long as he did on second in
100%.
overtime, where he's just like playing between his two walls. Like, I know we have the argument about like what constitutes a sandwich. Like, is a hot dog a sandwich? That was a Groot wall sandwich. And you just like you could not get through the walls. You could not get to the Groot. Shikigami had all of the stall to be able to get the strange teleport through, and it fell apart from there because RAD were just so out of tempo. Like, their players were scattered all around second. They weren't able to complete the regroup. They lost Crazy Kitty way too late before Shikigami even started pushing that point through third. And it just meant that they gave so much space. 3:15, this is going to be a Herculean task to be able to pull off to match the distance Shikigami were able to put up.
The Herculean task was completed by Hercules and Heracles, depending on your pantheon of choice here. But that does mean it is possible. Already, we can see Crazy Kitty was looking to see if anyone was in position, as we said that they were a compass passport. Didn't find anyone, so he's looking on at the flank, seeing if they can grab someone, which they do! Jump pad, Frost Mountain, taken out early. That's Phoenix off the board, and immediately RAD push on in, looking for their opportunity to just try and create as much of a snowball as Shikigami did. Frost Mountain not going to the strange. They think their team can hold this and they can make it back. Phoenix is a quick rotator to make it back to the point, but already several points lost onto the board here. Isidor's isolated, sent off the edge beautifully, and Crazy Kitty is showing the power of the Wolverine on their side this time.
Yeah, so it's not just the fact that they think it's holdable, why they're not going for this range. It's also the understanding of, well, if RAD cap first, they don't get an extension of time, right? So it's actually better for Shikigami because of how much distance that they were able to get in their OT attack, that they hold off and look to now use Portal Fight here to run directly on top of RAD and set up a Terror Cape vulnerability with Eastor just running on top of Smashnez, and RAD just were not expecting it.
Isidore onto the thing now, just for maximum delay, maximum disruption onto the point to try and deal with that Wolverine, but the Wolverine was sent back to spawn. Nice and early struggling prison from Ducky comes on as enough to finish off Isidore. You can only stop being displaced, you can't stop being captured by the Groot. Smash is on the flank, Dark Force teleport, allowing Name to hold, but it's only delaying here as RAD are once again dominating the fight, but that time bank is ticking down.
This is what Shikigami is doing, right? When you're defending in overtime, you take as many fights as you possibly can to wear down both the time bank and the ultimate economy. RAD have to win out these fights. Shikigami don't actually have to win one until we hit OT. Like, that payload still has a very long way to go, and RAD are about to start running out of time where they can actually leave it with only one person on it. So Shikigami, they're literally just going to wear RAD down. This is literally going to be a battle of 1,000 cuts.
There we go, keeping the team topped up. Cosmic Fastball sending Wolverine deep into the back line to see if they can catch someone out of position, but Crazy Kitty is going to get dropped low, but will be able to tank on through forward as Gladrax comes on out. Clobbering time from Lugia goal. Last stand! The back line is decimated! The front line is destroyed! And Shikigami are back to spawn. RAD with 28 seconds remaining. Breakpoint 2, and mostly it's going to come down to the final seconds.
But look at what RAD had to use to secure that fight. Clobbering time, Apex Predator, final stand. What did Shikigami commit? Banhammer, God of Mischief. They've still got Eternal Bond. They've still got Apex Predator. They've got environmental drop-off potentials too with the staircase right there, and we're about to hit overtime. This has been the fight that Shikigami have literally been waiting for, and they've got the ults to go first and get the eliminations to just take RAD's chances away.
But just going deep into the back level to see if they can take out Loki. If they can, that removes so much healing. Won't be able to find the right target. Catches Frost Mountain on the flank, though, who's onto the Star-Lord. Built up full ultimate here as they forced back onto the point, sending out that Dagger Storm for the healing bubble. Keep the team topped up. Lugia's on Spider-Man to try and get environmental. Captain by Captain, sent into the depths as Lugia may have just held their team. Apex Predator, Mash with the Eternal Bomb, try and buy some time onto the point here. Leo takes down Vertigo, removing the healing. Mash is bought as much time as they can with that Eternal Bond as Frost Mountain is being focused by Spider-Man, flips it, chases them down and picks them off. That overtime starting to look a little bit lower, Moxie, but they're delaying it. They're holding Ducky set up his own private domicile. He will not be harassed. He's buying as much time on the point as he can for Vertigo to portal back in. Lugi has moved over to the Cloak and Dagger just to make sure they can keep healing onto the point. The finish line is right there. Shikigami need to make sure they have someone at the point, and right now Cross Mountain, who goes down. Bodies rushing towards it to buy time. Eternal Bond gets to the point in time. We're down to the last few seconds. Everyone has portaled. Everyone has reinforced as the last portal comes on out. RAD are throwing bodies at this as overtime is ticking down. Wolverine looking for the isolation. Vertigo is trying to just siege but keep the shield up. If they get displaced, it could be huge. Vertigo's down. Kitty is down. The bodies are off the board. And Shikigami hold.
Masterclass in how to play OT. Coming on through from the side of Shikigami. It gets close. Like, RAD do a really good job, especially just Lugia coming back on the Spider-Man, which is absolutely wild because it derails the whole plan that Shikigami had. That Esau gets grabbed off of the map when he has Freedom Charge. We get to see as well the pressure coming on through on Star-Lord Mid-Galactic Legend, who's only able to survive because of being able to use the iframes of the Stellar Shift to live, get the reload, take the Spider-Man down, and continue that ultimate. But at the end of it was Shikigami just understanding, well, RAD have 3 minutes plus on the time bank. We don't have to win the first fight. We just have to make sure that we take as many fights as possible so that when we get to the overtime fight, RAD are so spent in ultimates that we can start just taking players away, taking map space away, playing for the long OTs, and getting to honestly take the fight all the way to third so you have closer respawn advantage.
What an insane matchup. You talked about that. That was a masterclass on how to play overtime, but honestly from both teams.
Yes.
That we wanted a close series, and while this is currently sitting at 2-0, could we possibly ask for more? Could we be spoiled such in such a close matchup between these two? RAD easily could have taken that. Shikigami did take that, but they fought tooth and nail to get anything here. This was a masterclass from both teams in not just when to reinforce, when to take these fights, when to come back in, but also when to swap, bringing out the Thing, bringing out the Wolverines, adjusting those when needed, the adjustments off the Garoots at times, just when needed. And wow, just I'm shooketh. That was art from these teams. This is why we love this. We have the best job in the world.
Yeah, that overtime fight is going to go down in history for sure, but we'll see if there's more monumentous historic events. We'll be back with Map 3 after this break.
Felicia's here to steal a win. Good fortune for me. Cat's claws. Me, ouch. Let's make a deal. Peekaboo. So stealthy.
That's how we do it, Chadwell.
Eat your heart out, strange. Deliciously dangerous.
I unleash the Vishanti.
Now's the perfect time to strike. You crossed my path.
Watch out, they're headed our way! Don't mess with the amazing Spider-Man!
Here's a pretty crazy stat from that last map. 40 eliminations total that Shikigami were able to get. RAD had 77. RAD almost eliminated Shikigami twice as much as their opponents and still lost. On a map choice that it's the same thing as when they lost against Virtus Pro. Pushed to the end of the map, as did VP, and then VP pushing in OT pretty much towards the end. Cost RAD here. We're going to Ariko Techa, and it feels like things could easily unravel for RAD. They've not been pushed like this against an opponent that most of us assumed would be, like, they'd be the favorites.
The fact is, these two teams, we talked about it, are so close, and it's going to come down to who's able to deal with a high-pressure situation. And once again, Shikigami have been playing together as a at least a 5, now a 6, for quite a while. They're going to have a potential mental here where it comes to dealing with these tougher matches that go to the limits, whereas RAD, they are all individually like that because we've got players from Zero Tenacity, from Chumps, all these separate incredible players coming together. But we talked about it before. The same thing happens to them versus Virtus Pro. They've just had the double, triple push overtime curse. And that's gonna be unhealthy for any mental.
Yeah, on your map choice as well, Moxie, it just feels like RAD could easily unravel here, but they've gone for Ariko, which is a map that they haven't played before, against Shikigami, who it's their most played. They've played it 3 times, won twice, lost once. It feels like RAD sort of throwing caution to the wind, and maybe they feel that there's something exploitable here on Ariko against Shikigami.
I mean, it feels like for both of these teams, they're just stronger on attack than defense, right? Something that we got to see on Central Park. Both teams very quickly caved open first. Both teams got to play snowball momentum to be able to secure second. And then RAD were also able to just secure more eliminations later on to pick apart Shikigami to secure third. And I feel like that's something that RAD are going to try to take advantage of. Because, like, if you can get a full push on Arako, then you're already doing much better than a lot of the teams that we actually get to see play this map. Because of, again, it has the same sort of, like, problems as something like Symbiotic Surface. If you lose one fight on second, you lose all of the momentum. It takes a very long time to be able to take map space on first as well, since now a lot of teams have wised up to the flanking routes of things like Psylocks, Daredevils, anything that would try to get behind and split your attention, and that gets dealt with very, very quickly while still being able to maintain a solid front line.
It feels as well like, I remember Ash was saying in one of the interviews that it's hard to play honest against them because they're so good at exploiting the draft. But Tetra, the drafts have been almost identical outside of a couple of characters towards the end. And more notably, Elsa been protected on both sides every game so far. This is a long sightline map, so Elsa's going to be really good. But we have seen a lot more 2-2-2. Wolverine especially, very good on this first point. Crazy Kitty and Frost Mountain have been playing it a ton and finding success. It really does feel like this is the most honest type of Marvel Rivals that we've seen RAD have to play because of the Elsa being in the game and the 2-2-2 lineups.
Honestly, yeah, we've seen them just being forced into these kind of mirrored setups with Mantis taken out. We even saw the singular ban on Ultron really trying to commit to, nope, you're going to play 2-2-2, you're not going to play triple strategist. Shikigami tried to drive them in this direction, and we've seen some honest and incredible Marvel Rivals from RAD, but right now, they still need to recover. They are on the point of being sent to the lower bracket here. If there's any team that can do it, it's RAD. They are one of the best in EMEA and have continued to show it after coming up from MRC, for goodness sake. They're just that good, and they improve literally every game. We talked about potentially seeing this series go to a 5-mapper. I would not be surprised, especially with how good they are on Elsa, Wolverine, all these characters that excel on point 1.
Okay, so on that subject, sorry, Moxie, to put you on the spot, because it's like, you predicted RAD. Which player do you feel is the one that's going to bring back this reverse sweep if it's going to go that way? Like, is there a particular player, a role, even just a hero, that you think RAD need to rely on to bring this back?
I think, like, honestly, depending on how band draft goes, if you get Elsa, then obviously Elsa has to be the one, like, coming through with a lot of eliminations. But for me, they just need to work on the coordination. It wasn't about, like, one player individually there. It was that multiple times they just weren't able to regroup, weren't able to get the timing right on things like setting up the Strange Portal to contest first, which then led to second snowballing so massively out of control. And more, like, less so about what RAD are doing, more so about what Shikigami are doing, shutting down Isidore. Because we talked about, like, the roster of Shikigami coming into this. We talked about, you know, like, Kaya's being a standout, was on the Venom. We didn't really talk that much about Isidore, but he has been having a career-defining match so far today. He's been unstoppable.
So they need to shut the Isidore, essentially, Techa. I guess that's a direction maybe of their win condition if they want to make this a 3-0. I'll leave it to you guys to debate as we go for the draft, seeing if it's going to be any different from the last two.
Ryan's running away before we can criticize him for that pun.
And I'll get away with it every single time.
Oh, you.
Oh, boy.
Well, let's head into what could potentially be the last game in this best-of-5 series, or it could open the door for a potential reverse sweep as we begin where we always begin, it seems, in playoffs at least, with a Gambit instant ban.
Not too surprising here. We're going to see a Mantis, and then we're going to see an Elsa, then we're going to see another Mantis, then we're probably going to see a Invisible Woman. These teams have locked down the start of the draft again. It's when we start to get a little bit further in where we start to see more adjustments as time has gone on. To see adjustments this early in the draft would be a shock, to say the least, and you would certainly hear us react. But so far, everything's following the expected draft.
Yep, Invis, Mirror, ban, right?
Yeah.
There's one from Shikigami.
Oh, it was Harvard.
Do RAD equalize with the Invisible Woman being unseen? Yep, there we go.
There we go.
And now what's the save coming on for? Like, previously we got to see a little bit of focus go out onto the Vanguard Deadpool. Very, very strong, honestly, on Arako, having a Vanguard who can take some of those off angles, put pressure, also who has ranged poke as well, without being heavily reliant on melee. But it looks like we're going to see a deviation this time. RAD will be securing themselves the Loki. So they'll be able to have, like, Loki, Cloak and Dagger, potentially. Adam Warlock is going to be the instant reaction ban coming out from Shikigami. This is a convoy map, after all, and Loki Adam is a surefire way of burning off a lot of time on an attacking first point, or even securing a full hold, which now means do RAD go for the Adam ban? Likewise, no. They go for the Cloak and Dagger, so potential struggle through first, but when we branch out into the rest of the map, that Cloak and Dagger ban will be coming through in full.
Shikigami do have the possibility of going double reses here if they did want to bring in Adam themselves after taking it away from RAD. That would obviously be on defense as opposed to attack, but it's given them some flexibility when it comes to their defensive side. But now RAD, they have been given access to the Ultron, and Smashbase is thinking about it. There's a lot of options here for them to try and break out of the first spawn, and as usual, these teams are giving us some spicy hovers. We'll see about any of those as we begin to head on. Defense, we're looking at a very, just as much sustain as you can, do as much damage to everyone out the doors, and be prepared to use those corners to your advantage. There's a big risk of being isolated by characters like Wolverine, like Angela, who are so popular on this map, to try and catch you out of your defensive positions here. So RAD, they are looking at an Ultron and a White Fox here with Lunar Snow to really counteract anyone who's trying to get onto that backline.
Yeah, good CC immunity, and also, like, you're going to have Lugia going to the Captain America, so basically being able to drive into Shikigami's backline, but also still have presence on the objective itself to stall out for as much push as possible, allowing the rest of RAD's team to anchor their positions around actual map space as opposed to the objective itself. Crazy Kitty tries to chase down Frost Mountain, who grabs Lugia and actually takes Ducky down. So that means no mag for the anchor. Takes out the Captain America too, since RAD down both of their Vanguards know that they won't be able to sustain into a fight. So Lugia makes the decision to self-sacrifice onto the point, go down, stall out for a little bit of push, and also the opportunity to swap onto the Thing to counterplay the Wolverine, which already, as we talked about, these teams both looking stronger on the attack, secured the first fight win for Shikigami with very little RAD could do, and it reads in Ultimate Economy too.
hope Lugia likes the thing, because Shikigami have forced him to it basically every single game so far. Leo's just trying to take care of those brute walls, look for an opportunity to try and isolate someone. Bad hammer onto the backline, but Kaya's dropped incredibly low. We do have a rocket low-key backline, so potential close onto a Cosmic Gun Amplifier or even aggressive copies with Lindstrom stealing from their opponents. But Kaya is going to be sniped off by Smashdeath, brought back in the Battle Rebirth Beacon. It's not going to be a permanent sticking elimination, but it is enough to force a repositioning regroup out of Shikigami.
Smashnez has to be very careful about his positioning. You can see that Lugia actually is having to mark that right lane to make sure that Shikigami don't take an off angle and put the pressure on the Ultron. Crazy Kitty comes on through with the Apex Predator, managing to secure the elimination there onto Isidore, and that opens the fight up for Rad. You can see Shikigami know they're not going to be able to win that fight. They want to just regroup. They don't want to allow Rad too much one-sided damage to be able to recover the ultimate economy that they lost on the first fight loss.
Shikigami going to be sticking with the same composition, not going to be adjusting at this early stage. They creep their way back onto the point. Ducky has Strangling Prison at the ready, though. Isidore's at 57%. Here comes the clone. It is going to be the Cosmic Yarn Amplifier for Lindstrom, so damage boost. Here is the commitment onto the point. Smackers immediately pulls down to the low ground. Can't afford to get picked out of position here, so it's a retreat. They can give up a little bit of space here as long as they don't lose the objective as they push onto the point. Ducky looking for an opening to try and isolate people on the point, and will find Frost Mountain, utilizing the Iron Root Wall to make sure they don't get locked down. Finds the high ground, keeping the team isolated, keeping them separated by Fox Teleport. Isidore with Straggling Prison off their own. Second Cosmic Guard Amplifier is allowing Shikigami to at least take a slight advantage, but Rad not giving up the space as they bring out Kumiho.
Oh, it's cost them both Kumiho and Rage of Ultron, which is why Vertigo had to commit the ult. Smashnez down in his ult, swaps to the Strange for the teleport, wants to be able to refresh the players with Crazy Kitty coming back into the fold so close to that Apex Predator. Shikigami not wanting to get caught out, pulling back around the corner, utilizing it as cover, waiting for the Strange portal to drop before they decide to make a play with their own Elsa ult, and Lindstrom having the regeneration domain. First turn comes out onto Crazy Kitty, big Elsa ult, finding a connection onto half of Shikigami's team, and that will be fight one for Rad. Shikigami get one more crack at first point, or we see a full hold.
45 seconds on the board. They haven't used Strange yet, so there is Portal available for Shikigami where it will not be available for Rad. They've regrouped, they've reset. Crazy Kitty retreating
the storm.
back to move away. And
they've swapped to the storm,
like you say, damage
it's the central
potential.
part damage boost. They're just going to try to steamroll onto Rad
right
directly. Like you've got the storm to be able to set up Leolas. You've got Easter as well, potentially be able to come on through with a late Strangling Prison. Lindstrom will kick things off with Cosmic Gun Amplifier too, which means that Shikigami will be stocking up their ults like crazy.
Amplifier number one, Isidore building up towards the Straggling Prison, trying to isolate the team, traps the thing for at least a moment. Ducky's taking so much damage, he can't create a roof, so he's just focused down. Bad hammer into the backside as well, trying to focus them down. Name takes down Vertigo. Mash finished off by Lindstrom through a Fate of Both Worlds, and Shikigami, the damage boost pays off dividends. No portal even needed. They burn the clock down, but they do cap the first point.
Stackable damage boost. Yippee!
Yay!
Oh, poor Mash. There's very little you can do in that situation if your Mash. Fate of Both Worlds just does not stand up with both Storm and Cosmic Yarn Amplifier. Stacks one on top of the other, and Shikigami are able to curtail the threat of the full hold yet again with Frost Mountains. Swap onto the Storm, which he is so known for. Ducky comes on through the Strangling Prison. The walls from Eastdoor, though, and there's very little follow-up outside of Rad being able to secure themselves a little bit of more high ground push, but they still can't commit fully to it, as they also have to control corner at the same time.
Gladrox comes on out, finds two, and an immediate blow up there. And once again, Rad, they're able to take yet another fight. But it's always in these last seconds where Shikigami seems to be finding value. We have the Omega Hurricane at the ready. Leo rejoins to see if they can continue to build up towards their own Apex Predator here. But Smashnez, Rage of Ultron, Vertigo, Kumiho. They have a lot of tools to try and tank through this. But will they have enough sustain to deal with that Storm ultimate as the creeping pressure comes on in from Shikigami, once again trying to look for that corner and trying to deal with Ducky on that Gru, who's going to get walled off, going to get focused down, trying to finish him off with the Omega Hurricane coming on out. Down goes Lugia Gold. The backline, they're just trying to blow it up with Ultron, and it's enough. They tank on through that beautifully. Nice job, Smashnez.
Yeah, but they've lost Lugia with the clobbering time. He's going to swap to the Strange to portal back into this fight instead. Banhammer as Kaya goes deep, trying to force out the Kumiho Unleashed from Vertigo. They just don't commit the White Fox ult. Looks like they're going to be content instead to just have everyone regroup through the Strange teleport and jump out with the Luna ult to be able to stabilize it. But if they get body blocked, this could be very dangerous. No, they get through. Fate of Both Worlds comes out. Shikigami try to just disengage the fight before RAD can get on top of them with one-sided Luna ult, utilizing the regeneration domain as stepping stones to buy their path out and then back in. But Vertigo still has that White Fox ult ready to go to brawl through and keep the team sustained.
Bangling Prison comes on out from Ducky, locks down Kaya, who's just getting healed so well by Name. Here comes the Cosmic Guard amplifier around the corner, blocked off by the portal so they can use a little bit of cover, but the Eye of Agamotto is huge from Brad. Lugia sets them up, they burn the Kumiho and the Apex Predator, but it's enough to take down Shikigami and force them off point in overtime. With portal already used, it will end here. Rad have broken the curse and they've been able to hold without a triple cap.
But they weren't able to complete the full hold.
Very true.
So now do we see like the continuation where both of these teams looked so much better on the offense. Shikigami with the Storm coming on out, and I think that's going to be something that a lot of these teams in the future are now going to have to be very aware of, that this is a swap that Shikigami will do in these last fights to make sure that they avoid that full hold or potentially start with it and punish you. That in turn has ramifications where you have to start out with something on your defense that could counterplay that Storm. But this was my concern. Tetra. Shikigami, they got the Adam, they got the Loki through. And like RAD now have to go up against the litmus test of can you avoid a full hold against a double res composition?
And not just that, they've gone for what might be, outside of if they maybe had Rocket instead of Lunar Snow, they've gone for what could be one of the most irritating compositions of all time to try and push into. Oh, you're trying to push it, you try to push it, you get some pickups. Okay, there's Reed vibes. Oh, you try and push it, you want to burst. There's Greens and the Fate of Both Worlds in this case. Oh, you try and push it, you get around the first corner. Surprise! There's a Groot and an Angela who both would like to introduce you to their friend, the Pit. It's a rough composition to push into, and RAD are going to have their work cut out for them. Crazy Kitty is going to have to get some big pickups here.
Yeah, and for Shikigami, since they're going for the Angela instead of like the Cap or the Venom, there's less opportunity for RAD to be able to punish the Angela's position, right? Like, you've got Crazy Kitty on the Wolverine, but you're not really going to have those grab opportunities. So what they're instead going to have to do is play more around the point itself as opposed to making a play for the high ground to force Shikigami into having to take a turn, which they can then use for the grab. Attempted freeze comes out. Lindstrom unfortunately does not find the connection, but regeneration domain is in play. Vanguard will be recovered, and we go right back into the neutral with Crazy Kitty now down.
Now they've got the corner as a little bit of cover to try and deal with RAD as they make their way in, but RAD take advantage with the high ground if they needed to. But now they're going to back up, reset. They've already managed to get themselves a little bit of distance. Name sets up some clones, continuing with the Loki firing squad to just pressure everyone who tries to step on up. You can see the flying Angelas, Wolverines, things, everything to try to take to the sky to take any high ground to see if they can isolate anyone. Kaya needs a little bit of healing here, but for now, Mash is going to pull the trigger first. Coming on in with an Eternal Bond. Kaya unable to find, gets locked down and crashes into the thing. Unable to get anyone into the pit, finished off, meaning the numbers advantage in favor of RAD as they push them all the way back to the hallway.
Crucially as well, Name does not have Karmic Revival just yet. You'll have it up soon, the moment someone takes a little bit too much poke, and you can see that sort of fishing for it, but at the same time, RAD are fishing to wait out Shikigami, committing one of their players a little bit too far past choke, find the Grit Wall isolation, and set up the elimination. Like you said, they get Frost Mountain, but Frost Mountain does have self-res, brings himself back into the fight so that Name has the copy up and available. Doesn't look like he uses it now. He actually goes for the copy onto Lindstrom instead, as we get Apex Predator from Smash. They're still finding the eliminations through Name's Alteration. Strangling Prism from Ducky. Good regeneration domain so that RAD can capitalize as well on the aggressive position of it. Means that they can go for more eliminations onto Shikigami, crucially getting the Adam before Karmic Revival, and it's up to Kaya to stall things out instead, coming back on the Venom, looking to keep this point in play for Frost Mountain to get a Karmic Revival cast.
But it will not matter. They are unable to hold. They burnt time and they built up ultimate charge, but now it's about that distance. There's the finish line at the very end of that hallway, with Frost Mountain already charged up towards a Karmic Revival just around the corner, but has no cocoon. If they get taken down, that's huge distance that could be gained by RAD, but they won't gain it with Vertigo, who gets absolutely detonated.
Oh no, RAD again just not prepared for the strange teleport. Like, Vertigo is in dagger form instead of cloak, so doesn't even get the opportunity to react with the dark teleportation. Mash too, not able to use the regeneration domain in time to save his fellow strategist. And now Shikigami have all of the map space back. They've got the objective in control. Crucially for them too, Frost Mountain can be set up behind the whole team so that RAD just don't get an opportunity to get on top of the res position. Like, you can play far forward, you can hold the objective, you can trade your players. You're happy taking those trades because you know that you can buy them all back with the cost of the Admiral.
Trying to get an isolation on Smash this, he's able to dash away before getting caught out by Isindor's walls. Slow moving forward here by RAD. They are able to take space onto the objective. They're able to get knocked down onto Crazy Kitty, preventing another isolation. Beautiful glass drops from Leo, though. Once again, it's just behind everyone, causing issues, flipping them at their own spawn, pulling them off the point and into doom. This is Shikigami continuing to hold. They didn't even need to use Karmic Revival there.
Yeah, and this means that RAD are going to be having to use ults. Like, they're going to have to burn a lot of ults to secure these opening eliminations, and then Shikigami will have 2 reses to be able to stabilize the team. Aya Agamotto catches onto Smashness, leaves the Elsa vulnerable. We have Mash having to come through the God of Mischief to just kickstart RAD's position forward into Shikigami's space. They've been able to take out the Doctor's range, but crucially, not the Loki, not the Adam. Late Fate of both worlds comes on through from Nami, holding their space so that the Karmic Revival comes through. Frost Mountain falls, but he's still got self-res, so those reses will still continue through this fight as late Elsa ultimate from the Apex Predator is used from Smashness once the ultimate's done.
Strangling presence has been mirrored from both sides. The turtle bond from Vertigo to tank the team through this fight, but Isidore falls. Lindstrom's Fate of both worlds will expire. And Crazy Kitty is on the hunt. Shikigami come up worse there. They buy time, but they just used every single ability they have outside of Apex Predator, which just came off cooldown. RAD, the same, except for Last Stand. Immediately Frost Mountain staying on the Adam. It's just trying to get some ping damage, but it's only on 23% of a charge.
Oh, he's so far behind though. Frost Mountain's playing on RAD's side of the map, which means that RAD have to turn their attention. They can't lose their Loki to the Adam. Smashness had to turn and deal with it, so we get the Apex Predator coming through from Layla's. Last time from Crazy Kitty, lands onto the backline, secures the elimination, and gets the summon to Nami, but he's got the regeneration domain and stabilizes the rest of the team the moment that the CC has ended. RAD still wanting to make a play forward. Mash has the ultimate, but they're down both the Groot and the Wolverine, and this is not the fight to commit to it.
RAD have a huge amount of momentum here, but Shikigami hold one more time. RAD, they have the God of Mischief and nearly have clobbering time. That's a lot of crowd control. Frost Mountain onto the Winter Soldier. Just more crowd control while it's good to help deal with that Wolverine. Get him off the point because Kaya is going to be huge in this next fight. If they can get an Aya Agamotto without being caught out of position, that could be massive. But Mash going to pull the trigger on the high ground to create the opening, create the pathway to push on in. Thing diving into the backline. Clobbering time comes on out, stuns out the entire backline. Ice Gallant, huge amounts of healing output as Kaya gets the Aya Agamotto with the Fate of both worlds from Nami with the God of Mischief. Apex Predator from Smashness finds nothing. Deleted off the board. With 18 seconds left, it's portal time as RAD are looking for it. Lindstrom was thinking about maybe a freeze, but I don't think they'll reach in time. They're looking to try and delay and force them off the point for overtime.
The combo. Like, Vertigo has to use Dark Teleportation to avoid Strangling Prison, or you're all getting caught by Groot. Oh, with follow-up Crack and Impact. You've got the Loki clones too. If you use those, free resets for Frost Mountain, and here we go. Again. Immobilization does come through. Ducky's able to come through with a Strangling Prison onto Frost Mountain, but they haven't been able to find the elimination onto the Winter Soldier, and Shikigami are pouring out RAD's chances of being able to flip this map. They're down Lugia Goat, they're down Smashness, Ducky's dead. desperately trying to touch in time on the Venom, but Shikigami have cleaned up the team. The Venom is here, but the freeze, the stun CC, he's held for Eternal Bond from Vertigo, but is it enough? Lugia is coming back on a desperation Spider-Man. Trooper's Fist does still apply Earthbound status on this phase of the patch, and RAD lose the CD, lose the map, and lose this series. Shikigami complete the hold and sweep out 3-0.
What a beautiful series. The numbers do not say what the actual result of that was, because that was incredible. 3-0, and you could barely tell. RAD just short of being able to push on in there, literally throwing everything at it. Venom, rush it. Spider-Man, rush it. Just touch the point. Don't go down. But it's Shikigami with one more hold. The Kraken Impact only found 2 resets, but it's enough. It's still time on the board. The last second Winter Soldier being just enough, and Frost Mountain showing just why they're so scary. That versatility. We saw them play Storm, Wolverine, the Winter Soldier. They were so flexible this game. And of course, we can't forget the Adam Warlock. This was an incredible performance by them.
I mean, Kaya clutches as well. When RAD are making that move with Eternal Bond, the fact that they had to use Eternal Bond to actually get into the fight meant that they lost the activation of it to have the CC immunity to dodge Eye of Agamotto. So when Shikigami just like disengage, understand that RAD will be walking up the one side as Eternal Bond, and then they come through, catching you at the end of your ultimate to hit 4 players with the Eye of Agamotto out of 6 and clean up that fight. That's the flip, basically, that allows Shikigami to be able to just complete the hold, because then RAD have to go in with like the Strange Teleport, they're going into Strangling Prison, Kraken Impact, they have no strategist ult to be able to survive it, but without Shikigami going for the Storm to break the full hold potential, we don't get to see second even come into play.
A vindication, isn't it, really? For a lot of predictions going a very different way, but the most unexpected aspect, I think, of this series, guys, is that it was a 3-0. Like, sure, there was a lot of moments, certainly towards the end of these points, that it could have gone either way, but Shikigami, I think Tetra doing well to just keep their heads above water, keeping drafts very similar, of pound for pound just showing up in those final moments a little bit stronger than RAD, right? It really did come down to the wire.
It came down to overtimes basically every single time, and when it came down to that, Shikigami are the team that came out ahead. They seemed to be able to control these high pressure fights a little bit more effectively, whether that was when to use their portals, because they would use them early on second points, like Moxie said before, not to try and delay first points, but to immediately just portal onto your opponents after the point has been taken to pick someone off quickly, and then you've taken a point right next to your opponent's spawn, meaning you have a lot more time to reinforce. If you lose that, you can try and pick them off as they come out, and you get a advantageous position. Shikigami, again, sorry, as Moxie said, Shikigami just seemed to be able to catch RAD off guard almost every single time from those portal engages.
We don't really have like a set MVP for series. We did do one, obviously, for Heretics versus Vision that we saw earlier, but like Moxie, it feels like Isido's probably one of the main frontrunners, I think, for Shikigami's performance of like an MVP across the series, but quite frankly, it could go to any of the 6 players. I feel like front to back, they played tremendous amounts of on-the-nose, like, Marvel rivals.
Yeah, I mean, literally, every time that Shikigami, like, you look at those players, they all had clutch moments. They all had clutch moments. You can straight up just like go back and be like, yeah, Kai with the Eye of Agamotto that we talked about when the replays were running, Isidore that we pointed out as well, Frost Mountain being able to use the Storm as well with the swap from Shikigami to stop the full hold, because if Shikigami had been full held, RAD broke first very, very quickly. We didn't even really get to see the relay race of the comic revival come through, to the point that Name was having to use Loki copy onto Lindstrom, God of Mischief, instead of the comic revival. Like, RAD were really well rehearsed in being able to deal with that aspect of Shikigami's comp, but when it went to the longer fights, when it went to neutral, when we went into second and they lost all of the map space thanks to the portal play coming on through, Shikigami's macro, I think, as opposed to micro, was the thing that allowed them to come out with such a decisive lead in this series.
You have to look at the backline as well. Like, looking through some of the stats just across the 3 maps, Lindstrom only getting eliminated once in that first map, 10 times on the second, but then here again, only twice on Ariko. That's crazy for, like, you're being eliminated 3 times in 2 maps. I mean, he's got the experience of being on VP. I think the positioning, the backline, how him and Name played in particular, like we sort of mentioned at the start of the series, those 2 versus Mash and Vertigo is a very close matchup, and it wasn't even like down to triple strategist a lot of the time, right, Tetra? It was a lot of 2-2-2. We do have an interview coming with my favorite guy, Layla, so I'm excited for that one, but I would say that the backline is often going to get underappreciated with how much they did, notably how little they went down on the side of Shikigami.
Yeah, quite frankly, there was a lot of times where the backline actually just threw themselves at the objective just to buy time, because as Moxie mentioned, it's macro time when it comes to Shikigami. They would throw a Fate of Both Worlds, just to try and delay, with a clone of a God of Mischief. These 2 players, they barely went down, but every fatality felt impactful. They were always making sure that if they were getting taken out, it was value. There was very little waste when it came to Shikigami in that, especially in that last map. They lost Luna at one point. It was on the objective where the whole team went down together because they were buying time and resetting for that portal. They would be taken down from a couple attempts from Smash This with the Apex Predators. There's not a lot you can do about that. That's, again, a whole team situation where you're regrouping. These 2 together are really starting to impress, and they're trying to make a name for themselves in some of those top strategist duos alongside, of course, Na'Vi and Virtus Pro, when we see some of our favorites over there.
For sure. I think a question I have for both of you, I'll ask Moxie first and then you can follow up, Tetra, is like, how, it's such a tricky question, man. How much of this is like Shikigami performing well versus RAD letting it slip out of their hands? Because it felt that they had the advantage both on the last 2 maps in particular. It was a bit of a rough start on Hell's Heaven. They lost every first fight on all 3 points. But like these final 2 maps, Moxie, it did feel like RAD had it in their control and it just slipped. Is it more them dipping, or would you say Shikigami rising in those chaotic moments?
I mean, like you said, it's a very hard question to actually like answer, because I think honestly it's a bit of both. I think like Shikigami, in terms of macro, they understood that they would be the favorite in certain fights, and that they didn't necessarily have to play to win the fights that they weren't the favorite in. They just had to get to a point where they could stop RAD from having snowball potential when they did win theirs. And then when they hit that peak, when they hit that win streak on that composition, they snowball from there. And then like on RAD's end, it felt like, yeah, they had like a really good handle in terms of the full hold potential, but the moment that the Storm comp came through, it sort of slipped away from them. And it was very similar actually to when we saw Shikigami change things in the rest of the series. RAD had a really good handle at the start of the rounds, but the moment that Shikigami were able to break through with something a little bit unexpected that changed the tempo, that was when RAD fell a little bit behind.
I'd love to be able to give a more like one side, like a more definitive answer as to one side or the other than that, but I can't. It's the exact thing that Moxie said. It comes down to a little bit of both. The fact is, you talk about potentially mistakes from RAD, they could have been more prepared for those portal engages that came in the second opportunity. Moxie brought it up perfectly in the cast. It was a neutral where your opponents aren't pinging you from range. You know that they've been portaling you in the past, and you stay in dagger form. That's risky. You're taking the risk that you're waiting for someone to potentially get focused down by, say, like an Elsa from a flank, than the portal play that you know your opponents might be doing. It's a risky situation, but then you look on the other side and just see how effectively Shikigami were playing those late game fights, how they were able to reinforce. We saw a lot less like desperate random swaps to stuff like the Spider-Man from Shikigami, when they were giving up points in those overtimes, because they knew who could reach the objective quick enough, who would be playing what when it came to who went down, and who to be moving on to strategists and which ones. It's both. It's got to be both.
Yeah, and I think Shikigami's like main composition when it came to the team was the Alcatia one. And I remember Alcatia doing a lot of those like tempo portal plays if they lose the first point on like Central Park, going for a very quick portal to just be able to contest it, buy a little bit more time. They were doing that on the last 2 maps here. I think the reason why I ask it is because like seeing people in chat, it's a very knee-jerk reaction to be like, that was a massive choke from RAD. And I don't think that's inherently fair. I think the main thing is that RAD play proper Marvel rivals. Like they try to draft in the same way that the VPs and Navis and Team Heretics of the world would be. I think the thing about this series, Tetra, is just that Shikigami are just more of a wild card. Just being able to pull out the Storm in those moments. When you got players like Frostmount and happy to be creative in those instances, it felt that just in the flying by the seat of your pants moments, Shikigami were a little bit more comfortable than RAD were, where RAD were trying to play a little bit more structured, perhaps. I don't know. I'm curious on what both of you guys think, but let's start with Tetra.
We saw a lot more of RAD reacting to Shikigami than Shikigami reacting to RAD in terms of the picks. It always seemed to start with Shikigami playing the Wolverine, resulting in RAD going to the Thing. And then we'd see that swapped in terms of map number 1, for example. Quick adjustment over to the Moon Knight, capitalize on the fact that your opponents have the Thing, swap back over to something else. And it just felt a lot like RAD were chasing Shikigami because Shikigami did have that flexibility and seemed to take advantage of the fact that when they went down, they were utilizing it to try and catch their opponents off guard, including one time where the Thing was out. You can't swap unless you want to run all the way back to spawn on the Thing or go down. You don't have a lot of options there.
I mean, it's the same as like what Tetra was saying, right? Especially on Araka, where we saw Rad try to run the Captain America to have just as much stall potential as time, to try and just be able to like split the team, try and put pressure on the backline, try and put pressure on the objective, buy themselves a little bit more space. But like Tetra said, the fact that Shiki came out with the Wolverine to start meant that the Captain America survived one fight and then swapped. But that one fight that you lost already meant that when you're walking back into the second one, Shikigami have so much map space, and it cost Rad in terms of having to just like take time, build up ultimate economy to get that back.
Well, we'll see what the perspective was like with the boots on the ground as we speak to Leolis from Shikigami. And I think the first question that we have to start with, Leo, is how do you prepare for a series like this, right? Like RAD had a pretty good run of show in their groups. The draft seemed to be really impactful, right? Fairly similar up until the very end. How do you prepare for an opponent like RAD, and how did you guys come out on top?
We scrimmed them a lot. We scrimmed them a lot during the group stage, so we know, like, we have a good idea of how they play and what they like to play. But then, yeah, that's pretty much it. And also, we had a lot of prep, of course. We learned different comps that we didn't really know before. Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about Central Park, because obviously when you're coming in with 1 minute for your overtime round, and they're coming in with plus 3 minutes, that's got to be a grueling task, but you were able to not just unlock first and second, but pretty much all the way through third as well. Do you think it was something that was going right for your team, or were you more sort of capitalizing on the mistakes that RAD left there for you to take advantage of?
Well, they capped with 3 minutes, so we felt like we need to do something crazy, so we went Storm, and then we snowballed them to third point, and then eventually we just managed to cap. But yeah, there was a lot of nerves going on at the in the overtime defense, as you could probably tell. We were dying a lot one by one.
Who's doing a lot of that shot calling in those high pressure situations? Who's keeping you all in control? Because you seem so composed.
I would say it's all of us have our own input, but Kaya and Frost Mountain, they talk a lot. They do a lot of most of the calls, and then the rest back up.
I have another question on top of that. Frost Mountain is playing a lot of stuff that we haven't seen in these cases, like the Storm, which is something we did see him play last season, but how much of it is just freedom of just we know he could do well and just let him play what he wants, and how much of it is specific compositions that you have all been practicing?
We haven't really played Storm once in like this whole season, or even the last season, but he just said I could go Storm here, and we were like, you know what, let's try it. So, and it worked.
Love that.
I mean, he does love his Storm anyway. I think he'd want to do that at any given point if he could help it. I do want to talk a little bit about like something that Frost Mountain said before. Like, when you guys played Na'Vi in your groups, he said that you kind of ran out of plans. Like, you did win on Central Park, but outside of that, you seemed to just run out of options, and stuff like Trust Me's Venom really started to show up against you. Was there many plans in this series? Did you have a lot of good game plans? Because there was so many like overtime fights and moments. It felt like it was very chaotic, which suited you guys more. Or did you just feel like you came in very prepared on how you wanted to take fights and what maps you were expected to go to as well?
Yeah, we were expecting them to pick Central Park, but I would say the main difference between the Na'Vi game and this game was that we were playing more for the meta and not doing our own like draft, kind of. Like we weren't that good at Gambit comps, and so we spent a lot of time playing Gambit since group stage, and now we are very comfortable on both Gambit comps and Elsa comps.
I think Frostman said as well, like, you focused a lot on comfort then as well. But your next opponent is Team Heretics, who you also just recently lost to. It's your final game of groups. I guess the final question is, what went wrong in that series, and what have you guys been working on, like, to prepare for an opponent like Heretics, like, coming up tomorrow? That's a tough opponent, right?
Yeah, they are good, but I would say it's the same thing as the Na'Vi game. Like we're playing for the meta. We have a comp in mind every time we start the game, and we know how to draft. We know what to play. So I think we're just better at the meta than we were before, I would say. And I think it's going to be a good game tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully you get the revenge, and Heretics haven't dropped a map yet. It would be nice to see you guys really challenge them in the rematch. But I'll let you go for now so you can enjoy the next two best of fives. But thanks again, Laylas. Awesome to talk to you, and congrats again for today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too, pal. I mean, yeah, for the kind of game that you'd want to expect, like a lot of people would have predicted RAD. I think everybody on the graphic, other than Tetcha, I will keep shouting him out because he went against the grain and came out on top. The shock is that it was a 3-0 series win in a best of 5. Wasn't necessarily one-sided, mind. It was just the scoreline, but like Moxie really did feel like Shikigami starting to really come into their own and show that they are a top team in EMEA.
Yeah, they've got more flexibility, I think, is like, that was the concern that I had moving out of group stages. I was like, are they going to get held back by the fact that they've been playing very specific compositions and potentially getting boxed out of those in the ban draft? Are they going to be able to branch out into more? And from what we're hearing there from Leola, is like, that's something that they sort of worked out would be a problem, and they've made moves to make sure that when we headed into playoffs, it's not.
Before we go on to the next two best of 5s, Tetcha, we have a switch around. Any final thoughts you want to say before we see ourselves again tomorrow, I guess?
No, other than despite that not being a best of 5, that was one of the most fun games I've cast this season, so I'm very glad to be here. Thanks.
I mean, it's more action to come for sure. We still have two best of 5s. We've got to see Na'Vi and Virtus Pro in action up against Fire Strays and also Peps, respectively. But we're going to go for a break whilst we switch around some of the casters and then get into the action for the rest of preseason playoffs for day 1. So we'll see you very shortly.